Welcome to this Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network. My name is Steve Rudd.
I'm Nick Gunning, and I'm Nick Gunning, and we're following the Ewoks from Return of the Jedi to the Ewok TV movies, the cartoons, the comics, and beyond. And this time, we've followed them straight into the loving arms of the droids.
The droids. Today, we are discussing the two-part Droids and Ewoks team-up, Lost in Time. I almost said space there. You heard that?
Danger, Will Robinson.
Danger. So yes, Lost in Time, consisting of Droids number 4 and Ewoks number 10. These issues hit the stands in July of 1986.
Both issues were written by Dave Manek, illustrations by John Romita Sr. and Warren Kremer. I assume John Romita is doing all of the droid stuff and Warren Kremer is doing all the Ewok stuff. That's my guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The Ewok cover is interesting because it happened to coincide with the 25th anniversary of what is considered to be like the modern Marvel era. So like 25 years after Fantastic Four #1, I believe. And so originally the cover had Wicket framed in the center with all the Marvel characters around,
Yeah,
X-Men on the bottom and stuff. Yeah. In my collection, it doesn't have that. It's just a blank frame around him. But if you look at the original issue, it was a tie-in with that 25th anniversary, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is totally blank.
Yeah, I think just for the Dark Horse reprint, which is what you and I both read it in, because it's collected in softcover, Star Wars Omnibus, Ewoks and Droids. But I think for that Dark Horse collection, they took all the other Marvel characters out, probably because they didn't have the rights to it.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, when I looked up online, that's where I saw it. And I remember going, oh, yeah, where? And then I was looking at mine, and I was like, oh.
So depending on how you're reading it, you might have seen this 25th anniversary Marvel cover, or you might not have.
Yeah.
All right, our featured crew member today is Jacqueline Rocher, who serves as the inker for the Droids half of this team up. She worked on many 80s and 90s comics adapted from TV and movies, including 6 issues of the Police Academy comic book, which was based on the animated series, which itself was based on the movie series with Steve Guttenberg and Marion Ramsey. So didn't know that existed, but it does.
Didn't know it needed a comic. As well.
I remember having some of those Police Academy action figures. I don't think I've ever seen an episode of the animated series. I watched all the movies.
Yeah, I watched all the movies too. Oh man, they're classics.
They are.
Like there's like 8, aren't there?
There's a lot. I think there's 6 or 7. I don't know. Once Steve Guttenberg leaves, it's kind of like, it's pretty, like Mission to Moscow, I remember being pretty rough. But I think I've seen Citizens on Patrol 100 times. So
they're all so good.
Not the cartoon. So maybe someday we'll watch an episode of the Police Academy cartoon.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. That would be fun.
All right. Well, let's get it. I mean, I feel like everything's been building towards this. Finally, the first time. Still can't believe it never happened in animated form. They never did. And I guess I assumed it was sort of because of continuity, but we'll have to get to that because the things they do for the continuity in this are both extreme and meaningless. So
they made a critical error that literally panned out nowhere.
Very confusing about how this lines up. But yes, please take us in. Teach me about the Droids team up.
The uber detailed plot of first Droids issue number 4, Lost in Time. C-3PO and R2-D2's newest job is to serve on planet Suma as diplomatic couriers. They arrive just in time to see a heated argument unfold before them. Apparently, a young alien named Prince Pluz from planet Alzar stowed away on Zornog's ship all the way to planet Suma, unbeknownst to Zornog. Furious at Zornog that his son stowed away, King Gorkus, Pluz's father, threatens interplanetary war if not returned in one day. We quickly find out this was no accident as General Slud, King Gorkus's own general, convinced the youngster to stow away in order to cause a war. Zornog immediately tasks C-3PO and R2 with taking the prince back to his father on Alzar and do so with haste. En route, the youngster hides, causing C-3PO to panic, but this distracts them, allowing General Slug to approach with his fleet. C-3PO, R2, and Pluz discover Slud's treachery and prepare to escape into hyperspace. Slud fires on the diplomatic ship just as its antimatter hyperdrive ignites. The reaction causes an explosion to the delight of Slud, but to the bewilderment of C-3PO, R2, and Pluz. The simultaneous reactions somehow land them in anti-space. Spotting a rift in the darkness, they fly through, only to discover they have time warped 100 years into the future.
Ooh.
Before they can fly back, Plews jettisons himself in an escape pod, hurtling towards a forest moon, foiling their chances of returning immediately. Meanwhile, on the forest moon of Endor, Wicket and many of the Ewoks witness a falling object. Chief Chirpa notifies Logray, who consults the fortune stones. They tell him a blinding light will bring them good fortune. Believing the falling object is that light, they set off to find where it landed. Wicket, Nisa, Chirpa, and a few Ewok warriors discover the pod in a swamp. Prince Plews emerges upset, and they give him honey, which calms him down. They take the Star Child, which they call him, back to their village, except for Wicket and Nisa, who hang around to investigate a noise. The two discover C-3PO and R2, also looking for the Star Child, and immediately think they are demons. They run away frightened as the two droids follow them, meaning no harm. Wicket accidentally springs a trap, which topples a large boulder. Will they be crushed? Dun, dun, dun! Ewoks issue number 10.
Let's do it.
Demons of Endor. Imagine reading this one first and not knowing
It'd be
what
a little
happened.
confusing. A little confusing.
Yeah. A large boulder careens down onto the young Ewoks. Quickly, R2 anchors his center leg down and flips his two side legs up and diverts the momentum of the boulder away from the Ewoks. No one is harmed. Nisa and Wicket are stunned. The demons save them. But C-3PO explains they aren't demons and are looking for Prince Plews, who crash-landed nearby. Surprised they know Ewokese, they inform C-3PO they took the Star Child back to the village thinking he was a good omen because the Ewok-Dulok peace treaty was being signed today. Back at the Ewok village, Plews disappears again, but is found in a nearby barrel of honey. They clean him and prepare to take him along to sign the treaty. Wicket and Nisa get back with C-3PO and R2, and Logray instantly levitates them, thinking they are demons. Wicket and Nisa explain their purpose, and that they also saved them from a Dulok trap. Logray is sad and stunned, as the Fortune Stones were so wrong, and the Ewoks had already head off to meet with the crafty Duloks. The Ewoks show Gornish the child, a sign of good fortune for their treaty, but Gornish snatches Plews away and threatens to drop him off a cliff if they don't go away. When the Ewok Peace Corps begin to cross the rope bridge back to their territory, the sneaky Duloks begin to cut it. However, C-3PO, R2, and Wicket and Nisa arrive, and when they do, the sun reflects off of C-3PO's golden body, scaring off the Duloks before they successfully destroy the bridge with Chirpa and his Peace Corps. By accident, Prince Plews remained on the other side, and when he attempts to cross the bridge, it begins to collapse under him. Quickly, R2 offers Wicket a rope, and he uses it to jump out and catch Plews before he falls to his doom. R2 pulls them both up to safety, and the Ewoks and droids are delighted everyone is safe. The Ewok escort Plews and the droids back to their ship, and they set off to travel back through the time void. Back in real time, King Gorkus is furious King Zarnog has yet to return his son, much to the delight of Slud secretly listening into the king's transmissions. Suddenly, the diplomat ship emerges from the time void with C-3PO, R2, and Plews. Slud is furious, and they chase them. The general manages to damage their ship, but they are close enough to planet Alzar to land Prince Plews at his father's palace. Plews rushes out to inform his father of General Slud just in time, as Slud intended to take the droids hostage too. With General Slud exposed and detained, peace between Suma and Alzar restored, Prince Plews returned home without harm, takes a moment to snooze after his long, eventful day. Roll credits.
Okay. Now look, not to get too deeply into your territory, okay?
I knew that's where you were going.
But, okay, so if the droids travel 100 years into the future to connect with the Ewoks, that means that these events are happening 100 years apart, right?
Yes, that is how mathematics works.
Okay, but I mean, so like from the droids' perspectives, it makes sense that they've never been to Endor, that they don't know the Ewoks, because for them, Return of the Jedi hasn't happened yet. But if it's 100 years after that, Return of the Jedi has happened for the Ewoks. So why
Yeah.
don't they recognize C-3PO? Why do they think he's a demon? Why don't they think he's the golden one? Like, it makes no sense.
So I think I can explain it this way.
Okay.
This was made before the prequels. So
Yes.
in the prequels, we find out Anakin makes C-3PO. So we
Okay.
know it's impossible for them to. So we can immediately write that out and go like, oh, they messed up. So if you write that out, then we assume that 3PO and R2D2 are over 100 years old.
But I don't think we can say that because they interact with Boba Fett. They talk about the Rebel Alliance and everything. The Droids show is definitely happening within like
Oh yeah, definitely
10 years of
but
A New Hope. So I just don't understand why they felt the need to push them 100 years into the future. Because it makes the Ewoks, all the stuff that the Ewoks are doing 100 years after.
Yeah, it does.
But that's
Definitely
crazy.
does. I think that was a weird thing. Instead of making it like a wormhole, which I don't know if it was concept
Yeah.
that was popular at the time. But that's immediately what I thought of. Was like 100 years. Yeah, that's like really far. And like not only that, it was just like, why don't they just make it a wormhole to like a different part of the galaxy or something like that? And then now I thought, okay, they're going to be stuck on this side. They're going to be stuck on the Endor aspect of,
Oh yeah,
like this quadrant of the galaxy, right? It's like the Gamma Quadrant. Well, they're in a Gamma Quadrant now because Endor's there.
See, I kind of thought that maybe, because if you remember back when we were doing Caravan of Courage and the Battle for Endor, originally when they were making those movies, they were thinking that, okay, the Ewoks live forever, and these are like hundreds of years after Return of the Jedi. Yeah. That was like an original concept that never made it through, but that was sort of in people's mind as they were trying to lay out when this is. I just don't see how you can make this 100-year time jump different. To say that all the things we've been watching on the Ewok show are 100 years after like Return of the Jedi just doesn't make any sense. And even if
maybe
it
not
did,
even 100 years. There's different concepts of how time warp works, where if you're leaving your current time that you're in, the events that would have happened in the future don't happen. So you can go 100 years into the future and people won't recognize you or know of you because you ceased to have exist in that time.
Right.
And so to me, I was like, okay, I guess that's what they're thinking. Also, I was just like, it wasn't even that. I was just like, why 100 years? Like,
yeah. I don't know what that accomplishes at all. Like the time warp, I don't even know why you have to do it necessarily.
Because
like,
it didn't drive the plot at all.
No.
The only thing that drove the plot was that they were in a different place, which was significant, which they should have just left it at that. And I don't know if maybe like time, maybe at the time, what was it?
Well,
in 1986, what was in 86 that had to do with time travel?
Back to the Future. Big? Back to the Future was 1985.
But yeah, there you go. So like it was cool at the time.
But what's also confusing to me is that Nisa is like, oh, whatever. Those guys are cool. I wonder if we'll ever see them again. And Wicket's like, only time will tell, kind of hinting that they're going to meet up again at Return of the Jedi. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense if this is 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like you add this big contrivance to somehow explain how they could be together. It doesn't explain it. It's not interesting. And it just adds this wrinkle that you're like, and okay, set all that aside. Why don't they see C-3PO and think like, oh my gosh, it's the golden one. It's our god. Come back. They're just like, he's a demon. I didn't get that at all.
Longo got that.
Right.
With that whole thing of like,
I know.
When we see the golden one and it's just like, talking about 3PO. Here's the thing. So what's really funny, one of the things that stuck out to me, it's not even Okavark and it's not a Chihuahua for me, but I was just like, oh, this would have been so cool that they had talked about a bright light will appear in the sky and that will be a sign of good.
Right.
Or whatever it was, right?
Yes.
My mind immediately went to, well, it wasn't the meteor.
Yeah.
And what if it's not even 3PO? What if the bright light in the sky is the explosion of the Death Star?
Oh,
the Stones were right.
Yeah.
And Logray's like, oh, I don't understand. The Stones are so wrong. The bright light in the sky was supposed to bring good favor. Cool. And it's just like, and I thought, it just hasn't happened yet, dude. The Death Star is going to blow up and then that's your good favor. And that was like running through my head of like, oh, they totally missed the mark on bright light in the sky.
I wonder if they ever toyed with the idea of, like I'd said in a previous episode, like what if C-3PO and R2 just didn't interact with the people? Like, what if you do this and forget about the time thing, but just have C-3PO and R2 kind of stuck with the duologues, and so they never actually interact with the Ewok. Like maybe we would feel cheated that we never got to see a true team up, but we've had multiple episodes now where C-3PO and R2 have been like in disguise. So they could have also done something like that. Like when they go down to the planet, they're in some kind of disguise, so it's not immediately clear. I just feel like there's a way to do this where you can kind of get all the things you want and have it still be fun. But I didn't really feel like this whole like this bratty prince runs away was a very fun story anyway. You know?
He really wasn't even a part of he was actually a plot inconvenience.
Right.
Pretty much. You know, he kind of only appeared when they needed to drive that part of the plot that needed to be returned.
Right. See, and I feel like you could have just...
do anything.
No, he didn't. And you could have just taken them and dropped them somewhere. You know, the droids and the Ewoks are trapped in some danger together and they have to work together to get out. I mean, I would have read that all day, but I felt like this just didn't really... Like, yeah, I guess technically it's a team up, but it doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel like there's an adventure, really.
Yeah, and it felt like, again, that, like, R2... C-3PO was completely worthless except for translating. Again, he had literally no part into it. And then R2-D2, again, had made up new powers. You know, now he has a 100-foot coil of rope, apparently, inside of that thing.
That's true.
You know, which is like... That doesn't make sense. It would make more sense if it was like an electrical cord, but you know, like a vacuum cleaner where you're like tugged in and went all the way back inside.
Right.
But like it just, you know, that didn't feel like it didn't feel like how they were helpful in Return of the Jedi. How their role was they were kind of like on the outside, but did like one or two pivotal things that changed the course of history. Where like you know, it's just like, come on, you couldn't have thought of something clever like that. That like,
I know.
You get to this planet and like, the Ewoks are kind of in charge, and all of a sudden something happens, and 3PO is like, R2, what do we do? And R2 does like one thing, and then it changes the story where it's just like, no, I'm gonna save every single time there's danger. R2 has a way to get out of it that you're just like, come on.
Yeah, it's rope,
you know,
powers.
like.
Yeah,
that boulder that probably weighed 10 tons, he's able to move that. But then when he drives away at like 1.5 miles an hour.
Right.
I know. Give me a break.
I know. Yeah. Again,
you know, all I can think of is, hurry up, Goldenrod. You're going to be permanent resident. You know, like, it's just like they're taking forever in Empire Strikes Back, and R2-D2 has the power to like lurch 10 tons of pure rock, or divert it.
I know I keep coming back to this, and this is a Steve nitpick. I recognize that, but like, I think I would have preferred no explanation to having this whole 100 years thing thrown in there. Just let them meet and have an adventure, and we're just like, But adding that wrinkle, to me, I couldn't get over it. So that stuck in my head a lot. So that's not technically my Oak of Arc moment, but what is yours? Let me hear yours.
So my Oak of Arc was obvious was 100 years. I feel like it was a mistake.
It's weird. Yeah, it is weird.
But really, it was Chirpa didn't even question the time void.
That's true. No problem.
With sorry guys, we got to get going through the time void. And they were like, "Yep, you want to help? You want us to help escort you?" And I was just like, "Wait a minute." He wasn't even like, "Wait a minute, a time void? What is that?" You know?
Not bothered.
That
not
bothered
by
me.
it.
I was like,
no.
I was just like,
didn't care.
He was like, "Yeah, I guess we better get you back to your time void thing."
Yeah.
I don't know, that the whole time thing really is like, it reminds me of the very end of The Force Awakens.
Oh.
So they have this whole star chart. Was it the whole star chart and then R2 just had the piece, or did they have the piece and R2 had the whole star chart? I can't even remember.
R2, I think, had the starting point.
The piece.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it was like a whole galaxy.
Like you can't extrapolate based on that.
And it was like,
yeah,
it's right here. And it's just like, wait a minute.
Oh, it was there.
It wasn't like, you know, the one scientist to go, maybe we should start looking in this gap in our star map. And that's probably where the planet is. Like,
pick one of these. Yeah.
But in this area here, that looks like it's not filled in by anything.
I think the thing
you know,
I think the thing was they had a map, but they didn't know where to start following the map. I think that was it. But
that's not how space works. You can go like that's the thing. And I was just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
So,
I can't help you.
Okay, this felt like where it was just like it just. I think you're right. They should have just been like, "Whoa, where are we?" And then that's it.
Yep.
We're in some area. We don't know where we're at, but here's a planet right in front of us. You know, and then that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's just a pet peeve of mine. Like, if you're not gonna go the distance to explain it, then don't even try. Don't even acknowledge it. Just let us go. So wait. So then, what is your Oak of Arc?
That the Chirpa didn't even question.
The Chirpa didn't question it. Okay. Yep. Fair.
Yeah. Like, wouldn't you think he'd be like, "Wait a minute, what? What is this time void, and where is it in my forest?"
Yes.
You know, and like, they would have been like, I guess it's also the fact that 100 years in the future, where I guess I'm just going to assume then that they have had visitors to their planet. So
I guess
ships and falling from the sky, coming from the sky, that's not new to them. But the time void would be very difficult for them to understand, being a species that still use like sharpened rocks as spearheads. Let's be honest. They'd be like, time
and again
void?
We already had in the Ewoks, they interact with like Star Destroyers and Imperial troopers and everything.
True,
so
you're right.
It can't be 100 years removed from all that stuff, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay. All right. So that's yours. I think like I can at least understand and almost appreciate why they felt like they needed to throw in there and explain something there. I do not understand at all why everybody thinks C-3PO is a demon when the only interaction that the Ewoks and the droids ever have is them thinking that he's a god. And in this one, they're just like, he's a demon. You know what I mean? Like,
both
I just
Wicket
think that's crazy.
and Nisa are like, he's a demon. And then Logray, they show up with Logray, and Logray's a demon. And it's just like, really, the two of them thought the same thing. Really?
I know.
A demon. Interesting.
So
are there a lot of demons running around? Have we met a demon?
Worse for me. That's even worse for me because that's such an established thing that the Ewoks think C-3PO is a god. And even in goofy things like the Lego holiday special and stuff, they play with that too. So it's like just so to just not acknowledge that and go in the opposite direction is just, I don't understand it. So and
it's like, I don't even think that's necessarily like bad writing. Maybe just lazy writing with like,
I think it's bad writing.
This is fun. Well, I think bad writing to me is like purposefully doing things where like maybe that's just an oversight where they weren't like really thinking.
Maybe,
like
I would buy them just being afraid, but it's just I don't know. Didn't like it.
True. I mean, everything we write now, in as far as Star Wars, there's so much lore that it's it can be easy and can be difficult. Apparently, it's a lot easier to screw up than we think.
Yeah.
Despite having a team of writers, I don't know. Somebody from Disney needs to give me a call so that I can correct them on some stuff. But like, at this time in Star Wars history, there's just 3 movies. And a Star Wars special that's terrible. And so it's just like a Christmas special. So, but like, they're obviously not thinking long term, right? Where it's like, there's 3 established movies. We can kind of probably do whatever we want at this point. So I'm thinking it's just lazy writing. Like, well, what if we just make it 100 years? That's cool. Yeah, kids will love that.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. That's probably the motivation.
You're probably right.
It's not even really bad writing. It's just like, oh yeah, that's new. Let's try that. And then now we're looking at it 40 years later going, what an idiot. And that guy's probably listening to a podcast going, I don't know, at the time it was a good idea,
And maybe that concept of the Ewok movies being set in the future was really kind of still in the air, because nothing about those really debunks that. So maybe that was still kind of what the thoughts were. I don't know.
What about your Ichiwawa moment? All right, give me something good.
Okay. Well, we've already kind of ragged on R2-D2's magic rope powers, but the little team up between Wicket and R2 is my Ichiwawa moment. The baby or whatever, like the prince is gonna fall. And so R2 and Wicket like team up, and Wicket's like, "Oh, I'll crawl after him," and R2's like, sends out the rope and everything. I just liked that. Is the only thing that really felt authentic to me, because those two characters are just known for their ingenuity, like in Return of the Jedi in particular. But R2 having that's just what he is, So the fact that it was like they had to spring into action and it was those two and they worked together to be like, clever and brave felt really right to me. And I liked that. I liked that little moment.
Yeah, it's like R2's the Swiss Army knife and Wicket is the guy that needs something to cut.
Exactly.
So, and I think that's a good one. For me, it was just a crossover itself, because I remember as a kid watching the Jetsons Flintstones.
Oh, yeah.
And being like, dude, I remember sitting there with my brothers being like, wouldn't it be cool if Kirk had a mashup with Picard? And they were like, that's a cool idea, but that'll never happen. And then we were graced with Generations in 1995. And I remember that movie still is probably my favorite from all of those Star Trek movies, because it was just done so well. And when I was a kid, I thought of it. So I feel like it was made for me.
Yeah.
But like,
that's certainly the one that I have the most sentimentality like attached to.
Yes.
And Shatner is great in that movie. Like Shatner's performance as Kirk is really great in that. I don't think he gets enough credit for that, but
I don't think he does either. That was a great movie. And so like for me, like a crossover, this like I'm thinking I never even asked for this.
Yeah.
But we got it. Right.
We got it.
It may not have been a home run. It may have just been a little dinker to first base, but it happened. Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I think that's cool that somebody was like, hey, why don't we do this? In probably an era where it was easier to do it with superheroes, right? Marvel, they're cranking out like Iron Man and, teams up with Black Panther, and DC's doing it, Superman and Batman. And I don't even know if that was happening yet, but like, we're like, hey, this is really good. We don't even need to do like a full team, like the Justice League and stuff like that. We can just do two superheroes and just have them team up. So it was kind of like hey, well, why don't we do it with Star Wars too? And I'm glad they tried. I mean, they tried. They honestly did. I don't, I'm not super convinced that this was probably their best effort, because they've done some very good Droids comics and very good Ewoks comics. And I think for me, I mean, if we want to get into like the Yub Nubs, I mean, this is like a 2.5.
I think you're right.
For me, like it just didn't feel like they did a very good job of having a good Ewok comic or a very good job of having a droid comic. And it feels like they took all the most annoying aspects of both comics and the show and put them into one 2 parts.
It's true. Well, especially just because we're just coming out of the Scarlet Pirate, where it was C-3PO and R2-D2 chasing after like a runaway kid. It's like the same. I don't know.
Same thing.
I agree. I was in my mind. I was like, I'll round it up to 3, just because we got the crossover finally. But
crossover, that makes sense. Yeah.
Truly, you're right though. You are right. It's not good. So I mean, I would put it a little lower. Yeah, I would certainly rank it low amongst the Ewoks comics. Though there were a lot of variety in the Ewoks that we saw in this, and I did appreciate that. There was a lot of different character designs. Yeah, different colors, like lots of cool. So I did like that. So you know what? I'll say 3 for that.
There was a blue Ewok.
There's a blue Ewok.
R2-D2.
Not a blue R2-D2.
Like,
correct.
Not a blue
correct.
R2-D2. But I wonder if these guys are still alive. I'd really want to ask one question before they die. Why? Why a blue Ewok?
Yeah.
But not a blue R2?
We'll never know.
You gotta. All right, go. Answer.
We'll never know. What I do know is that we're just gluttons for punishment, because next up is our annual Shark Week crossover with 9021 Here We Go, covering Ian Ziering and Sharknado 4, The Fourth Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
Are you excited?
I am excited. Only because I get to see it again. This one's my favorite. I love the fourth one. Yes. Any excuse to watch it again.
Finally, we can claim some sort of relevance, because the title is at least a Star Wars pun.
Yeah, so this is feels like a legitimate
Finally.
crossover.
Finally, it makes sense. Yep.
I mean, do we call it a crossover? I mean, normally I'm just guest starring on 902 and Here We Go.
Yeah, I think the shows have melded together for this episode. So yes,
that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The Ewoks and Droids did their
excited.
crossover. Now we're doing ours.
I'm telling you, if you guys are listening right now, you guys and gals, if you have not, scroll back and find the Sharknado episodes. Start at the first one and work your way through the third one so that you're just ready to hear the fourth one.
Right here with us. Yep.
It is. You'll be right with us because it is just so good. What a wild ride. I mean, the third one is pretty wild. Oh, man.
And how many are there? Is it 6? 5 or 6?
I think there's 6 or 7.
Okay. Speaking of Police Academy, I know that Steve Guttenberg is in this, and I think he's his character from the Lava Lantula movies. So maybe we have to do those.
Really?
I don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
We'll see, because I know so many cameos.
I know that Ian Ziering shows up in Lava Lantula as Finn at some point. So yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, I haven't seen it. I know Kendra hasn't seen it, so she and I will watch, and we will be ready for our next episode. So we'll see you then.
Yep. I'll see you then. This Endorian Life was brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include 902.1 Here We Go, 90s Music Got Me Like, and previously on X-Men. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook or X at Endorian Life. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show wherever you get your podcasts.